This is the Minding Your Own Business podcast, brought to you by Elder Research. Each episode will bring in data and analytics gurus from around the world as they regale us with their data analytics stories and enlighten us with their secrets for how to turn data into actionable insights. Now, here's our host, Evan Wimpey, who will guide us as we dare to mind our own business.
Hello, and welcome to the Minding Your Own Business podcast. I am your host, Evan Wimpey, and today I am very excited to introduce our guest, who is Kathryn Walter. She's a senior operations research analyst at Avista, Avista being an energy company. And we've had guests from a lot of different industries here on the show so far, but this is our first guest in energy at all. So we're going to learn a lot about what Kathryn does there, how analytics get applied. Excited to have you on the show, Kathryn. Thanks so much for coming.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. To kick things off, can you give us a little bit about your background and how you ended up at Avista?
Sure. So my background going way back is I have a bachelor's in OR from the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. Did not know what OR was when I decided to do it, but it was the math department, and I liked math, and then realized, I really like this. I then did a search and rescue coordination. Then the Coast Guard sent me full-time, paid for my master's at Columbia, which is a great deal. And then I did human resources analytics at Coast Guard headquarters. At that point, I was like, I really like this OR stuff. This is great. I want to keep doing this. And in the Coast Guard, it's not a career path. So it was like, well, guess I got to leave. So I left. I became an optimization consultant at Ortec in their office in Houston, where I helped with optimization problems for a few years. Also did some professional development teaching of courses. And then I was looking for something else. And someone reached out on LinkedIn, a recruiter was like, hey, you look qualified for this operations research job for a utilities company in Spokane, Washington. Would you be interested? And I said, nope, I'm not moving to Spokane. That's not an option for me. And he was like, oh, well, thanks for replying. And a few weeks later, they said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? Being fully remote. They realized that between the pandemic and the nature of this job, like, it would be fine to be fully remote. I was like, okay, tell me more. All I know at this point is utilities company, Spokane, Washington. That's it. And they tell me more, and I'm like, oh, this sounds like what I've been looking for. Sure, tell me. And then I got hired in August 2021, so it's been almost 2 years. And Avista is the utilities company in Spokane, Washington. Also, it's pronounced Spokane, not Spokane. They had to teach me that. And Spokane, if you don't know where it is near the Idaho border on the eastern side of Washington State. Because they also had to teach me this, so I had to learn a lot because I never had reason to know before. And at the time I lived in Houston, I now live outside Washington D.C. It's still fully remote. Still have no plans to move to Spokane because it's just not an option for me for personal reasons. But so in Avista is the power company. If you live in Spokane, your power bill is Avista, and that's it. They've been around since 1889. We have about 1,700 employees, and I'm the first and currently only, and therefore the best ever operations research analyst at the company. So about 10 or so years ago, around 2009, 2010, my boss, Clint Kalich, knew what optimization was, and he always says he's an economist. And so he knew what it was, but he's not an OR person. But he's like, oh, this could be helpful. He runs the planning team within power supply at Avista, and he started finding like a use case for it. And he did a very small optimization model for two of the plants, the two hydro plants that are connected, meaning one, the water goes through one, goes down, and gets to eventually reaches the other plant. And found that doing better decision making and better modeling of these systems, it could be $8 to $10 million a year in additional revenue with almost no extra cost other than the cost of making that model. So it's very profitable to make better decisions this way. And he was able to get management on board with, go create this application. So he used, and still use, we definitely still use some excellent operations research consultants who do the heavy lifting of the building the math model and so forth. We also have a team of software developers who make the interface, deal with the database, get everything moving the right ways. And that team has changed over time of getting bigger, getting smaller as the needs are. And now since about 2017 or so, there's been like a fully functioning app. And like I mentioned, about 2021, they realized, hey, let's have an OR person in-house. So I'm kind of in the middle of this app between the users and the developers and the OR consultants to get everything going. I realize right now I'm the only person who has both the access and the skill set to see what's the user seeing of what's on the screen. And when they try to run a model, how does that turn into the the data that gets sent to the code that builds the math model. I can then see the math model. If it's unfeasible, I can see why it's infeasible, or I can see what I need to figure out why it's infeasible, and I can see what's step back all the way back to what the user sees. Because either people can do that, they don't have the skill set to be able to see the math model aspect, or the OR consultants don't have the access to the user interface. And so I'm the person kind of in the middle. I can see the full thing. And I work on this. It's called the Vista Decision Support System, ADSS, and that's what I do. A lot of aspects to it of, hey, something got infeasible, what's going on with it, something is off, or hey, we want to add a new feature, we have a new requirement, we need to make sure that's modeled correctly. Users just saying, hey, these numbers look wrong. Why are they wrong? Okay, let me go look at why they're wrong. So a lot of different applications there within the same big picture application.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, and very, very, very much tuned into the operations research world. It sounds like an OR problem, which I was very surprised when you said there's no career path in OR in the Coast Guard, because I suspect there are use cases where the Coast Guard could use some operations research.
Oh, absolutely. And they have them. They have some civilians who have long-term careers, and there's a couple people I know who are active duty officers who are now having a second tour. But since it's not really seen as a career path, it's not, at least back when I got in 2018, a whole 5 years ago, it was not seen as a career path. It was, I could maybe get lucky and go again one day, but I was like, why would I do that when I can leave and have a career in it and do this forever? And also at that point, I had 7 years active duty time. I was like, I don't want to wait 13 years to retire. And
Sure.
OR so booming and so much new stuff's going on. It's like, I don't want to wait 13 years to be able to start doing this. Like, and plus they have a lot of OR people don't get to do OR skills. Mostly that has to do with some senior leadership not understanding OR skills.
Sure.
Like, we had a running joke in my office that because someone who outranked like all of us came by one time, and he said something about, oh, he wishes he could learn, what we do, and he just doesn't have time though to learn how to do VLOOKUPs and pivot tables. Because to him, that's what we did, which is upset, because we did do a lot of pivot tables and VLOOKUPs because that's the tools that we had, and that's what we had to do to answer the questions that we got. So it was that, but that was the attitude that that's what you do. And so a lot of like OR stuff you don't get to do as much, or it can be really hard to get going. So it's this, I could do this, or I could just get out and then go have a career path and then get to do OR every day. And so that's what I've been doing. But I mean, the Coast Guard set me up well. They set me up. They paid for both my bachelor's and master's degrees in OR and gave me some work experience. So I don't regret it. But it's very much that they're missing out, because I'm definitely not the only person who's left the Coast Guard for this career path. Because in other bigger services it's there, but I'm not the first. I doubt I'm the last too.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Yeah, you have a master's in OR from Columbia. You don't want to spend your days doing VLOOKUPs and pivot tables in Excel. And so you went to Avista. You learned how to pronounce the city's name. Mm-hmm. You learned a little bit about Eastern Washington, even though you never had to move there. And Western Idaho, I don't know. I guess you've never moved there, so is it close at all to Moscow, Idaho? Okay.
I feel like I should know this.
Nah,
I do not. I know it's near Coeur d'Alene, which I'm not sure.
Coeur d'Alene. Okay.
Yes, it's close. I hear it's about 45 minutes from this. So even though I've been with Avista since August 2021, I went to Spokane the first time ever, the first week of May of this year. So a few weeks ago. It was very exciting. Right. People were very nice there, way nicer than I expected. Like, I didn't think people would be mean, but I was like, people are friendly. Everyone's talking to me and having conversations with everyone.
You're in the DC area. Everybody's outside of there is relatively nice. My little shot at the National Capital Region.
Yeah.
But I guess to get us closer back on track, you learned a little bit about the company, but presumably you had to learn a little bit about hydroelectricity, how dams work, how things work. So can you talk a little bit about that growth and experience?
Well, just like I didn't know how to pronounce Spokane or where it was on a map, I also was not aware that people still use hydroelectric power. I didn't know. I'm from Georgia, and then I was in the military. Like, this isn't something that comes up. So I just didn't know that it's very much still a thing. And we also do more than just hydroelectric. We also have thermal plants, and we have some solar and some wind things. We model all of it. But I had to learn all of it. But luckily, my manager is just like, yeah, I know you don't know this stuff. That's okay. We're not hiring you for that knowledge. We're hiring you for our knowledge. We can learn everything else. And so I've learned a lot by talking to people, by seeing it, by just reading things. And as I still don't know a lot. some stuff it's more of I'll learn it as I need it. But yeah, I didn't realize this, and I should have realized this. But it's one thing I never thought about was the power. You have to have everything balanced all the time, and you can't just have a whole bunch of extra power hanging out. And you also need to always be ready to move up the system up and down within a few minutes or almost instantaneously. So you have to account for that in your generation and everything else. I didn't realize this, so we modeled that. So there's all these things that I had to learn that I feel like this is one of the beauties of operations research is that it's so industry neutral. You can apply it to anywhere, and you just have to learn what you need to learn about it in order to apply it, because the concepts are the same. The how to make a nonlinear function linear enough that you can plug into a mixed interlinear program. That's the same whatever industry you're on.
Yeah, I think that's a very generalizable point too. We had a previous guest. The most recent guest we had is in the pharmaceutical industry. And when they were growing their analytics team, they were deliberately looking to hire people outside of the pharmaceutical industry so that they came in fresh mindset, being able to look. It sounds like you were sort of targeted being outside of the energy sector, the energy industry, because of the mathematical skill sets you had there. And you come in and you help build and maintain and apply this optimization work. This is, going on 10 years-ish that this has been a vision. But how old did you say? Avista is on the order of 100 years old. Mm-hmm. So they've been solving this problem without operations research, maybe specifically, for a long time. So are folks eager to do things better? It sounded like you had a champion, your boss was, but mm-hmm. is that sort of across Avista?
Yes, I'd say so. People are eager to do things better. And it comes down to, the bottom line of, if this works to make more money, it's a for-profit company. Of course, why wouldn't we do that? But people aren't necessarily they might not have the time to go, hey, let's just brainstorm. How do we do more analytics? How do we do more stuff? Because it's just outside of their realm of what they're doing. But when it comes to, if it's working, then sure. Because while what we're doing, we're making these decisions, or I should say we're supporting the decisions using ADSS. We're supporting the decisions with optimization, but these are decisions people made, for, like you said, decades, 100 years before ADSS started. So it becomes this, is it doing the same thing, first of all? Like, if we're not doing the same model they're doing, they're not going to use it. So they're doing the same thing isn't improving it. So there's constant feedback between me and the other people who work on the model itself, and then the people who are using it to actually make those decisions of, is this still making sense? Is this supporting what you need to support? Are you getting what you need out of it? You want a user interface to show something that we don't really have to optimize? Okay, well, we'll get this user interface for you because we want you to be in the one place. We don't want you to have, we're not trying to make your life more complicated. We're trying to make this, easier. So if it's easier and it's also helping, people are going to embrace it.
Yeah, I think that's a good mantra. If it makes it easier for somebody, then they tend to embrace it. I'm thinking back, I've never worked in energy, but in the consulting space, touch a lot of different industries. And oftentimes there's, maybe the optimal technical solution is not something that makes things easier. People are willing to embrace. I'm curious if you've seen that, either something that you've built or tuned or decision support. You said this would be the right way to do things, but it's hard to get the change management or the buy-in from the people who are flipping the switches or opening the day. Obviously, I have no idea how hydroelectric energy works either. But for the people who are actually trying to use the decision support system, do you have to sometimes step back from what may be technically optimal just to get something that people appreciate and people trust and people use?
Absolutely. Yeah, because if it's not following what they expected to, they're not going to use it, of course. And even if we find out what we're saying to do is better, if they don't believe it, we can't convince them. So we had that recently where we have some, I have to keep this very general.
Sure.
But we had a newish feature, and we had this going for a few months to help make certain decisions, and it was taking a lot longer than it should have. Like, it should have been pretty instantaneous. It was taking hours to run. And it got to the point that the people using it were going, why are we waiting for this? Like, we're not even getting the answers we thought we'd get. And we noticed that they were doing a lot of targets in the optimization. So rather than just say, okay, go optimize, or say, okay, but set all these variables to be these numbers. and they kept messing with them to try to get the numbers they wanted. Because in the end, they had the schedule that they were looking to get, and that they were trying to make the opposition do the same thing. And there's sometimes there'd be constraints they weren't aware of, or we weren't modeling the best, or things that we were told is always true that might not be as always true. So it didn't need to be as hard of a constraint as it was. But it came down to, okay, if they're not going to use it, what will they use? What will they? And it's matter of we created something that was pretty much just redoing the calculations they had on a spreadsheet. But if that's what they're going to use, okay. We got to keep working on the original thing to make it so that it is usable. But if it's not, if there's some issue with it, even if it's just taking too long, makes them not use it, then yeah, we're not going to try to force it, and then we'll just create a disconnect. They're just going to make their thing anyway. So why would we have that happen? And then it becomes that now no one's using this, now it's not going to get supported, now we can't do more work on it, and it becomes that cycle of no one's going to use it anymore.
Yeah, I think that's signs of a mature analytics or OR piece. Is we're not going to force this. It's not going to be helpful. Yeah. And it sounds like, you know, accepting of the feedback that the people are giving. Kathryn, your background is in OR. Your title is OR. You do OR. Is there a broader scope for using data and analytics to be, or I guess, is there sort of an analytics effort there at Avista, or is it confined mostly to the operations research space?
There is a bigger data science focus. That's the word that we like. I realize there's some controversy of what is data science, what does it mean, data science. And as far as I'm aware, we're still working on, I'm very focused on the application I work on, but I do know a data science team exists outside of us. From my understanding, they're still trying to get up and going, and it's hard because you can't really hire someone off the street. You can't just hire someone from the outside of who's some very experienced, very educated data scientist, because they're going to come in and there's nothing there. It's going to be very hard for them to get going. So it's that chicken or the egg thing of do you have to have the systems to attract the right talent, or do you have that talent to get the right systems going? And so it ends up being a lot of in-house training and so forth. And so there is the thoughts there, the efforts there, but what people are really doing, I can't tell you as many details. I'm not up to speed on, because I'm very focused on the system that I was hired to work on.
Sure. And I suspect that, maybe I paint too rosy picture. I tend to be an optimist. But your decision support system and the work that you've done, and it sounds like really incorporating the user experience to it, that's going to help to generate some buy-in. It's a lot easier to have, the next analytics thing when you are very happy with some analytics that are already underway and already making your life easier.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Especially because we have the tools now. So we have, we have all these things we do in Python, developers who can use that. We also have a Groovy license that we use mostly for this. But it's, hey, if someone has a very small model and they want to test it out, I can run it for them on my computer with a license on it and do it faster than them using whatever other software they might be using. So we have the tools there. It's definitely hey, what if we did this? What if we do this? And sometimes it comes down to just the time of, do I have enough time to work on something? Does someone else have enough time to explore something? But it's very nice to have the tool set and have the thoughts there of, hey, let's do something more.
Awesome. And on the time is scarce. You are the one and the only and the best, of course, operations research focused person at Avista. Does the team look to grow? What does it look like for somebody else to come in? Are you sort of growing operations research talent within? And I'm thinking about a lot of our audience as they're sort of starting up. Maybe it's not in operations research, but it's in some analytic endeavor, and they've had some success and they want to expand. And what are the things that you need to think about as you sort of expand the capabilities and really the size? Yeah,
so first is budget. As much as we like to hire a whole team of OR people to really focus on this and do more stuff, we might not have the budget right away. And so that's what's holding us back right now. There's definitely hey, it'd be nice to have another person, but we're not in the place of, oh my gosh, we need another person right now. We're not there yet. But that is already a concern, that once we get there, will we have the funding for it? But there is a general plan. I should say thoughts. There's nothing in writing, but plan that eventually we'll be able to grow the team of OR people. And I'm always trying to educate everyone around me about the different things we're using of, hey, this is why we're doing this, or this is like optimization. I gave a very basic training recently of what mixed digital learning programming is. I had a whole example because I'm from Georgia about like Waffle House and like optimizing what you're going to buy at Waffle House if you have to be there for 24 hours. I had a whole thing.
Is that public? Is that shareable? Surely it's just
I can share it to you.
all-star special all the way down, right?
Yeah. Well, so I'm also vegan, and I was like, okay, if I went to Waffle House because I gotta go, yeah, as a person from Georgia, that's just where you go. What's vegan on the menu? There's only two things, and so it becomes this: if I only have the two things I can eat, and I'm going to be there for 24 hours because I won a bet, now I have to do this. I don't understand the idea of losing the bet and having to do this, but if I won a bet and have to do this, what would I eat in order to also get the right amounts of like, calories, protein, not too much salt, so forth, and something like that. So that was the example I used of just like, hey, this is what's going on here. This is why it's working. This is what happens when something's infeasible. This is what this means. And so it's just trying to get that base understanding of what is this optimization thing. It's not just, we're just making really decisions. No, there's optimizations a certain type of math, and certain things happen behind the scenes of, and just trying to get more people on board with those ideas. And eventually I try to have more people who are operations research analysts specialize in this type of math. We do student projects sometimes. We just sponsor a project at George Washington University and have them look at one of our inputs of, hey, can we do a better job modeling this? If it's a student project, and we realize the student projects might not have, the answer for us, but it's those little things that we have that I was like, hey, it'd be nice to look at this one day. Sure, we can find the students to do that for us, and then interesting for us to see what they come back with, and hopefully interesting for them, and it works out that way.
Very cool. And then if one day in the future the budget's there and the appetite is there, you've got a network of folks who are familiar and hopefully have enjoyed doing fun and interesting work.
Absolutely.
Doing work other than shifting cells in an Excel spreadsheet or pivoting them. Yeah, very, very exciting. And also from Georgia, love the Waffle House example. I think that's a very accessible example. Really cool. So you've had some success there at Avista. At some point that the team may grow. I'm curious if, you've been there for on the order going on 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
You've learned a lot about the industry. You've gotten to do some very fun stuff. If let's just say the budget is now Kathryn's to decide and the team is now hers to decide, and you can point your OR efforts at any problem that you want, realistic or pie in the sky, whatever it is, where would you go? What do you think would be the interesting, the Kathryn problem to solve?
I think I would expand ADSS way bigger than we have it now. So, for example, we have a lot of predictions that we use, of course, because we're making decisions for the future. We have these predictions of like, weather and different, when the snow's going to melt to bring the water into the rivers, all these things. I would do a lot more. We basically just get these predictions given to us as inputs. I would see if we can do a lot more analytics to better predict those things. Predictive maintenance to then when should we do maintenance, but also how is that going to affect the bigger system? And really, because we do have that a bit in right now in the system of like, if we have all these outages we need to do, how do we best optimize the scheduled outages? But I would make it all one big model. It might take longer. If we get enough machines, enough people working on it, we could probably make it much more reasonable. And then bring in more of the people so people can like have it on their phone going, hey, what does it look like right now? If I made this decision, what would that look like? Because at like a plant, someone might go, okay, we need to do some maintenance. We got to shut down the plant for however many hours or days it's going to be to do something. And they might only be able to see something like the overtime budget of if we do it right now, how much that would cost in overtime versus if we wait a couple days. Now, that might be all they see, because why wouldn't they? That be the only thing they see. But show the bigger system. Okay, if you shut it down for this time, how does that affect everything else around the overall system? And then bring that power optimization to people to see, oh, hey, if we just waited a day or we did a day earlier, whatever it might be, we'd actually save the company a whole lot more money. Or it might be a better system overall for these other reasons, and just be able to get more users and also have even more analytics leading into the inputs of the prescriptive analytics.
Awesome. I think that's a great vision. And I think generally in operations research or data science analytics, people using data writ large, having a vision like that is such a good thing. When your champion, when your business comes to you and looks for ideas for where to implement or what could we do next, it sounds like you've got a backlog of ideas. You've got a lot of things where you could point efforts, things that you can do. And I suspect they're a lot better fleshed out than you have time to talk about in a 5-minute podcast question. But that is super interesting. I think that's a great generalizable advice for other people to do that as well. Not just think about your current problem, but what could be next. And Kathryn, I do want to put you on the spot for one last thing. I saw you give a talk at a Informs Business Analytics conference earlier this year. It was very good. I really appreciate it. Thank you for doing that. I hope you do more conferences and spread the word. And this wasn't the only thing that made it memorable, but you shared some math jokes, and I'm a bit of a jokester myself. So do you have any jokes on front of mind that you could share for the audience here?
Sure. So I'll give you 2 jokes. One that I think everyone should just sneak into their presentations. And when you say it, you got to just stop and just stare until someone realizes it's a joke. Make sure they laugh. Tell them to laugh if they don't, and then before you move on. Which is anytime you show a graph, you go, I can optimize and I can analyze. Graphing is where I draw the line. And then you show a line graph. If you do it right, it kills. Otherwise, people just stare at you, which also can be fun. And here's a joke for people to just tell to their friends and their family. I highly encourage it, and I expect to hear back from everyone how much this joke went well at the dinner table. Why do teenagers only travel in groups of 3, 5, or 7? Because they can't even.
Oh, Kathryn, thanks so much. That's a great angsty teenage voice that you can't even. Thanks so much, Kathryn, for coming on the show today. Super interesting topic. Really glad you're able to share it with us. Kathryn Walter from Avista.